Somebody's mowing their lawn. Rock on. Wait. Oh, shit. What am I supposed to do? Oh, here we go. Podcast back once again, episode 219. I am your host, Anthony Trapani. As always, I got at least one resident homie with me. I got Casey Howard with me this morning. What up, dude?
Hello.
And it isn't morning for this man. It is evening, deep evening for this man. But we got Tom Fountainhead with us today. What's going on, Tom? Good to see you, brother. Yeah, this was a few weeks in the making, and we finally got it going. So thank you so much for giving us your time and being here with us.
Well, before we get into anything, Casey, I need to apologize to you then, because I switched the names.
Switch what names?
Oh,
I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you as Casey before.
Oh,
it's all good.
This is my apology.
No problem, dude. It's
No
all
worries,
good.
dude.
We didn't put the name banners up to differentiate who was who. But yeah, dude. Tom, thank you so much for coming on and hanging with us, dude.
Dude, it's my pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Very much my pleasure.
Coming on to plug your new record, Changeling, which we have a lot to talk about. I had
It certainly is a lot.
I had a great experience with it yesterday. I'm driving home because I work in the Bay Area, but on Fridays I drive up home, and it was the perfect record for the drive home yesterday, dude. And I stayed in it from front to back, and it really, really was very entertaining. Never, ever once was I bored. I was always ready for the next Changeling. But dude, it really is it's a record for me. It's a record. Also, Casey will attest to it as well. He had a great time with it too. Lots of variety. And in each element of the music is all stuff that I love. So it's just like I love the genre hopping type feel, but actually also like the seamlessness of it too, and finding similarities to bands that I love, but also finding unique aspects to the record. I had a great time with it, and I very much recommend anybody checking this record out, and two, I will be listening to this a lot more in the near future and distant future too. I could tell it's never going to get old for me.
It's definitely an album made for repeated listening, like conceived to be needing multiple listens to really get everything in, because there's so many different layers. So hey, that's the best possible reaction that I can get. Like if you're into it on the first run, I can't even expect that, because it's quite intense. But then if you're willing to give it a few tries and to meet it on its own terms, I think that's when it really can play out its strength. So I'm really happy to hear that.
Yes, and I was just to add to that. I mean, just not to toot my own horn, but I am the perfect listener for that aspect of it, where I mean, I go into art in general for multiple layers that like to bubble up to the surface after I repeat listens or repeat watches of films, or go back to a painting and find a new aspect of a painting that wasn't there for me before. If it's something that I can flesh out and figure out right away in the beginning, it's most likely something that's not going to stand the test of time for me. So knowing that there's all these layers and how this thing will evolve for me after multiple listens, it makes me excited,
Awesome. Like I can't ask for anything more.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, let's
real quick, people are asking, are you guys live on a Saturday? Yes, we are in fact live. It is 11 a.m. here Pacific time on Saturday. And what time is it for you, Tom, in Germany, in Berlin?
It's, let me see, 8:15 p.m.
Okay.
So you're 9 hours ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why
we've done it. If you've been a long time listener of the show, we've had a couple of these where to make the time differences line up for us and to be able to get a live episode going. Yeah, us Cali boys and Tom making we're making sacrifices in the evening or the morning in order to make this happen.
Can I be an honorary Cali boy, maybe? Can I? Please?
Yeah, exactly.
Once you're on this show, dude, you're most definitely an honorary Cali boy, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, we were like, I love it when it's just backstage and we just jump on, and I've never talked to you before, met you and stuff, and we just instantly start laughing and like we're like instant friends. Like it's cool.
Dude, but hang on though. Didn't we do something together at some point? Like I'm pretty sure I edited drums for you at one point.
Oh, really? Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
It was a kind of like a deathcore thing. I forget the name, but it was an EP, 4 songs, and you contacted me because you were looking for somebody to edit the drums from the session, and I'm very sure. But then again, I didn't remember your face, so that says something.
Yeah, maybe it was the other Casey Brand, maybe, or something.
I don't think so.
No? Oh, I don't know.
But hey,
I can't remember. Yeah. Anyways, but yeah.
Music, huh? Names and faces.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you? Oh, go ahead, Casey.
Well, I just wanted to add real quick, because I want to get into your history, and I want to get into the history of the project of Changeling and all that stuff. But I just wanted to add, kind of, since we started off talking about the album and everything, for me, it was like one of those things that I was like, I heard about it and who was on it, and that that it was like your project, and then I saw the cover, like judging a book by the cover, I was like, this is probably going to be really good, and I really like the art of the cover, and it was instantly great. I was already texting some of my friends, you got to check this out, you got to check out this album, and
awesome.
And it was before I even heard the whole thing. I already knew it was going to be great, and then now I've just been listening to like it for the last couple weeks, just like and getting into different songs and like Abyss and all this, dude. I love all the songs for different reasons, but I just think it's such a cool it just works. It's so well done. Like it's like it's very tasteful and very interesting, and like it. And I've heard a lot of albums that change a lot and like go through different like styles and very dynamic, but this one's like really, it hits all the right nails, or it's just right, it's just perfect. It's like, yes, that's so sick. Like, and like and then the like tribal kind of parts, and like it just, to me, it reminds me of like almost like Viking stuff or something. Like I'm just like, dude, this is so sick. Like, and like the low kind of the different like singing and voices, and then just great production, and then it gets really heavy. Drumming's amazing too, and then the guitar solos are just like, what on earth, dude? Like, it's like so sick. So,
and there's certain lyrical phrases too that hit you real hard. Like, what I might butcher a couple of words, but do not worship me unless you worship everything. That one. Oh, yeah. That one, I just said it. I got goosebumps on the back of my neck right now, dude. I'm just like,
that is so cool that you were able to quote that from memory. So I'm really happy with that.
Oh, dude. Well, I'm a lyricist at the heart, so it's just like the words are always going to mean a lot to me.
Yeah, for sure. But you know how many, like how we get so overstimulated by so many different things, and then having such an intimate reaction to an album that you just heard, that you can quote a line of lyrics. For me, that's very hard.
Yeah,
very hard. So I appreciate this also on behalf of Florian, who wrote the lyrics. Like, that is awesome. Thank you.
We're just basically trying to show you proof that we actually listened to your record.
Well, I appreciate
there
that.
might be, you may have had some interviews with other people in the past that, maybe sampled the single or whatever, and then went into it.
I can't complain about that. I think everybody that I've been talking to on this interview run has been really cool. People have different styles of engaging with the album, so you can kind of tell sometimes that they've just kind of skipped over it. But I'm very sure everybody was checking it out before.
Totally. And yeah, I mean, we are of the generation where it was still cool to listen to an album from front to back. Now the way that streaming works, it's just, the hit a song here and then it's very ADD how people probably listen to music now,
It is. I mean, there's good and bad to that. It's not all like a terrible development. I think having the ability to just on the click of a button go into the discography of any artist, like go really deep and do like a forensic expedition into like the history of somebody who you just discovered. It's amazing.
Totally.
I grew up in my dad's vinyl record shop. So
Wow.
albums to me are like everything, and I'm a hyper geek when it comes to that stuff. Like discovering an artist and then going into the back catalog for me has always been like one of the pastimes. And now that that's gotten so easy, I think that's a great development if you just look at that in isolation.
I agree. I actually do agree with that. But let we pick up right after this. Let's spit out some plugs real quick.
Sure.
Just get that shit out of the way. Let me go over here to banners. We got the first one up at top, as always, battleforgecoffee.com. Our homies in Deeds of Flesh started a coffee company, and we've been backing it ever since. It's quality stuff. I actually just recently found my Battleforge shirt, and I should have wore it today, but I didn't. So, but you can get that shirt over at battleforgecoffee.com while you go buy yourself a bag of quality roasted beans that you grind up and you drink them and you feel jolted and you're ready for the day after that. So I know what is it? I think coffee is the number one used drug on the planet. So I know all you guys mostly drink coffee. You're all death metal heads. Why not support the underground and get your coffee? Oh, look at me wearing a Brutal Truth shirt in that one, but I'm wearing a different one in this one. What up?
Man.
I know. I guess I like grindcore, and I really like Brutal Truth. Danny Lilker's fucking the best. All right. Get your shit at battleforgecoffee.com. It is quality stuff, not just saying it because they're the homies. The next one would be generatorrehearsalstudios.com. Also the homies down in SoCal, Oceanside specific. If you're adjacent to that area and you want a space to jam and be there with like-minded humans, that is the place to go. generatorrehearsalstudios.com. And I think that's it for us. Tom or Casey, do you have anything else you want to plug?
Nah, it's all good.
Tom,
can I have a cup of that delicious coffee now? That looked amazing.
I know, dude. I'm telling you, dude. I am a coffee snob. Ask Tom Sundgren. You've had a conversation with Tom from Capital Chaos. Me and him go back and forth about coffee in the messages all the time, dude. I'm talking about my French press process and down to what you got to grind it at, how long you got to steep it, what temperature the water's got to. I get nerdy with that shit. Okay. So I don't drink bullshit. Battleforge Coffee sent me some really good coffee, dude. And we don't get paid by that. We literally they're our friends. They made a quality product, and we wanted to make sure that we can keep pushing it for them every single time we do an episode.
Cool, man.
So maybe
a short side question: are they still around? Are they still playing Deeds of Flesh?
So they're in the background right now. I know Mike Hamilton, the drummer, he's busy drum teching for Exodus. I know that Ivan and Craig are always doing stuff in the background. Ivan, for sure, I know that guy's playing every single day. Jacoby, I don't know what he's up to, and it'd be cool again to see them live. I think they did a run after the last album came out, which was 2020. Oh, did it come out 2020 or 2021? But
I remember, but they did festivals, right?
Yeah, they did a festival run with that and killed it. Life's crazy, bro. I mean, Ivan's a dad. Mike's doing the Exodus thing. Like everybody's got it's really hard to be above 40 and keep a death metal thing going for extended periods of time, you know?
Nah, tell me about it.
Totally.
But either way, I know that that's always in their blood, dude. And it would be really fucking sick to see another Deeds record, or at least see those guys up on stage again. And never say never. That's what I always say, dude. Never say never. All right. So Tom, where do you want people to go for everything Tom Fountainhead? I mean, I'm sure you got a personal profile that you want people to go to, but
I'm the worst person to ask this question. Just I'm so incapable of using online stuff to my advantage. Always have been. I am on Instagram again after being after being hacked, I think 5 times over 4 times over the course of years. So started from scratch again last year, and I'm back at Tom Fountainhead. And
cool.
Otherwise, Facebook, I think that's profile number 3 in total. That's Tom Fountainhead Geldschläger. With the weird to spell German name at the end. And otherwise, well, I think the best place to go right now is the Changeling Bandcamp, changelingofficial.bandcamp.com, where you can stream the album, get the Season of Mist merch, get the shirts, and the vinyl is sold out right now, and you can still get it from my personal Big Cartel page, which is changelingmerch.bigcartel.com, and we still have the last few remaining vinyl copies of that.
That's rad, dude.
You have a website too, Tom?
I do have a website. I haven't looked at it in a year, I think. It's, it's fountainhead.de.
Yeah, I found that one, so I put it in the
cool.
chat. Like
I have to do something with that and updated it at some time. It's just anything online for me is very hard. I have to admit that. It's very.
I'm the same way, dude. I mean, I've said this before on the show, but you go to my Instagram page, there's 3 pictures, and it's all of pirate coins, dude.
Pirate coins,
dude. There's no picture of me on my Instagram. I don't post. The only thing that I do on Instagram is obviously scroll for funny shit, but I'm as far as things that come out of me, it's stories to promote the episode, that's coming that week. That's really the only time you really see me.
Well, and you're on the Cali death chat. He's been
behind the scenes. Behind the scenes, I talk to people through chats and stuff like that. As far as like putting something out into the zeitgeist, I really don't do any of that.
All you get is pirate coins. That's it.
Yeah, dude. And pirate coins are still sick, by the way, dude. I got a whole fucking pile of them upstairs, and I should have brought some down to fuck with while I was talking to you guys.
That's cool, dude.
I don't even know the first thing about pirate coins, but
well, I mean, it's not actual pirate coins. It's not like those things were I found them in a sunken chest. It's some, independent maker that made a sick design. It's like pocket art. That's what it is. It's kind of like, if I'm going to be serious about it just for a second, the reason why I love that shit is because one of the pirate imagery. I've always had that since I was a kid, but it's a design that was brought into brought into the world. You know, it's like there was an idea, they executed, they finished it, and it's sick as shit. I'd love to have that in my pocket. I'll support, you know, this independent artist. It's literally guys that are, it's not like I'm buying those things from some giant corporate place that makes thousands of them. Like these guys, some of the coins that I have, they only had enough money to make 25 of them, you know, and so it's kind of the same way I look at other art. We were talking about other art. It's just like, dude, I got pieces of art behind me right now. That's like a 20, there's like 20 of those. This one right here, there's about 15 of those. All have their own little individual thing. It's like I'd like to support independent artists. That's why I still buy CDs and vinyls from bands that I want to support, that I know that since I've been in the industry long enough to know that the artist is the one that gets fucked through all these contracts forever. And so if I could actually just hand money to those people, I'm more than happy to do it, you know? I don't know. I don't realize, I didn't realize that pirate coins were going to get me on this rant, but it is true, you know?
Let's just talk about new metal for a little bit now, since we're already in the...
No,
we're not in the weeds. We're in the swamp right now. We're in the marsh.
All right. So yeah, basically, long story short, I don't use my Instagram for much, dude. There's so many people that probably find me tagged in these things for the show, and then they go to that profile and they're like, am I in the right place? You know,
it's like a fake profile for sure.
Yeah,
it's like pirate coins. This guy's gonna try to sell me something. What's going on? Yeah, but hey, anyways, cool. All right, we got it out of the way. So now, yeah.
All right, I'm through it. All right,
let's go back in time.
Actually, back to before we do the beginning shit. Okay. I want to talk more about your dad's vinyl store. Tell me about what that was like.
I am not anticipating this question. What was it like? It was cool as shit, man.
yeah, I bet, dude.
You know, when you're growing up, and he didn't always have the shop when I grew up. So he had it when I was a teenager, and it was just a super cool thing because I was already on the path to becoming a pro musician. I knew that was what I wanted to do, and hey, can you guys do me a favor?
Yeah.
And not make me full screen.
Oh, sure. Okay. Yeah. No problem. Yeah.
I can tell you why in a second, but just saying, just growing up in that environment, and he also had a little wine cellar where he would host sessions and little live gigs. So that was just a really fitting, cool environment to be in, and inspired me. And I found so many bands there, right? And I could also, that was before streaming was a thing. So, you know, before everybody could go on Spotify and just go into an artist's back catalog, I could go to my dad and be like, hey, Dad, can you just look up your files? You know, just discover this artist. What is the back catalog? Can you just order that for me? And then oftentimes he would. And if I didn't like it, he could still like fold it in with the rest and sell it later.
So that's such a sick situation, dude. You had your own personal like connection to distribution of anything.
But let it be known though, because like now I'm gonna toot my own horn here. Before that, I was religiously scanning like mail order catalogs for my favorite bands. Or I would even, you know, I was one of those dudes, like 12, 13, I would subscribe to metal magazines. And then everything I remember, you guys remember Rock Hard from Germany? Like it
sounds familiar.
German metal magazine for 20 years or so. And so I had a subscription for that, and I was scanning all the reviews for things that would say like unlistenable avant-garde prog shit, and then like 2 out of 10 unlistenable. Was like, okay, I'm getting that one.
Nice.
And 9 times out of 10, those became, you know, favorites of mine.
Oh, that's cool.
So, all right.
I Rock Hard magazine, they gave me a very nice review, but that was So just saying the like it was always like a favorite pastime to really do a deep dive in every artist that I was connecting with.
Awesome.
So okay, so now this sounds like this is a time to rewind to the beginning, just because I want to build back up to that and get more details of like what you were ordering from Pops, because if you already were doing your own digs and finding metal and other such styles of music, let's build it up again. So, we like, if this is always a timeline situation with the artist or artists, and I always love to know where your origins with creativity is. So, it could spark from a song, it could spark from a movie, a cartoon, whatever. It's like, where's the earliest memory of actually really connecting with some form of music or art?
Another good question. I can't tell you what the earliest memory is, but I kind of always was interested, like from a very early age, and because my dad used to be a musician back in the Cold War days in the GDR. He was a musician playing Western rock music, so he was not exactly well liked by the state,
Yeah.
right? So at some point he got his folder of surveillance, and it was like pretty thick. So
Damn.
anyway, so yeah, there was always music around the house. We grew up pretty poor, but there had to be music at least. And so I think I just really was soaking it up pretty early as a kid, as a small child. And then my parents supported that fascination and got me classical guitar lessons when I was like 7, 8-ish, something like that. Um, and I think for some reason my brain is just wired for music. Like that's I don't remember ever wanting to do something else.
Yeah.
How kids go through these different phases of what they want to do. Like my kids, they, every 2 months there's like a new thing that they discovered that they could imagine doing for a living, YouTube streamer. It's like, um, but for me, that was never the case. It was like, yeah, I'm going to be a musician. That was always clear, and it had
How were
nothing.
those first lessons for you?
Um, It was super formative. And the interesting thing now is like, so there's two parts to that answer. Like I didn't like it is 50% because I was forced to practice, which I hated. And
Mhm.
I only ever played classical music, classical guitar. There was like not like this lady that came to our house that taught me was doing any material that I was listening to. Um, but
That's part of the reason why I asked that question, Tom, is because we've talked to enough people on the shows I always want to hear their reaction to the lessons. And a lot of times it builds up to, I had a hard time. I struggled with it in the beginning because I wasn't doing what I wanted to do. And I've also we've talked to enough teachers on the show that have an easier time with their students when they're teaching the kid what they want to play. It doesn't matter what the song is. If they connect with the song and then you teach them how to play it, that switch happens when they're playing their favorite song, that it's like, I can do it.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
For sure. As a teacher, that's always the thing that I try to find out. Like, what's the interest of the student? Like, not what's my curriculum, but what is the student into that we can latch onto and then build it from there. Just from that early experience. But I also have to give mad credit to my teacher at that time because looking back now, like everything I do now comes from that origin. Like my entire way of playing guitar is so deeply informed by that. It's
Wow.
not even funny. Like there's some stories that I can tell you about how that all correlated. But I'm just gonna give you a quick one.
Okay.
So I don't remember the exact year, but there was a year where I was really doing terrible physically. And had heart surgery and also broke my right elbow, like this bone right in two. Kind of
Wow.
a long story, but that happened. And I was a struggling professional musician
How
till I
old were you at the time?
mid-20s.
Heart surgery
Yeah.
in your
So that
mid
was, I
20s,
think,
dude.
like 1 year or 1.5 years, 2 years the most before I ended up joining Obscura. And I was struggling, to make ends meet. And I had just, we had just had our first kid. And so it was a terrible time. And
Mm.
I had literal gigs to play. And I couldn't alternate pick. Because that bone here, the radius bone, is literally dead motion. Couldn't do it at all. So I still had to pull through somehow. And that's when my classical guitar training just saved me. And I began to just try to play everything that I could possibly with fingerstyle guitar, which I had been doing as a kid, as a teenager, all the time, but then kind of lost in the pursuit of being the shredder dude and wanting to do Paul Gilbert type stuff, never
Yeah.
being able to do it well anyway. But and then a couple of years later, here we are, and it's like, oh yeah, Tom Fountainhead with the whole hybrid picking thing, that's so sick. And I'm like, dude, it was just literally the only thing I could do to survive. And then that kind of developed into a thing. And so, yeah, and that's just one of the many, many examples where the classical guitar background
That's cool.
just either saved my life, saved my career, or just made my musical voice work somehow.
So,
awesome.
all right. So you get over the hump of not really wanting to do it, and there was a breakthrough point in the beginning, obviously, and you kept going because that's the part where people either throw in the towel and say I'm done, or you keep digging. So
Yeah,
you take lessons till when? 7 or 8, up until when?
It's kind of blurry, but let's just, for the sake of having a number, let's say until 11, maybe. So definitely at least 3 or 4 years. And then I quit.
What are you listening during that time? What are you listening to during all of those lessons?
Mostly what my dad listened to. So my dad was big into 70s prog rock, Genesis, yes, for a little bit. Jethro Tull, I still love Jethro Tull, one of the great, most underrated bands of all time to me. So everything 70s, Led Zeppelin or the Stones. And also something that really became my thing. For him, that was like a passing thing that he dabbled in, but I really got into really early into Mike Oldfield, if you still remember who that is.
I actually,
You remember
I'm not
the
familiar.
title music to The Exorcist, probably?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's Mike Oldfield.
Sure.
That's Tubular Bells, like his most well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so he had a way of, it was kind of prog rock without being prog rock. It was like long instrumental songs with great playing, but never virtuoso, never showing off. And it was all about building, letting pieces of music build to high plateaus of tension, and never following like a pop song structure, but just working with music in terms of plateaus of tension and release. And looking back now, I think that's exactly what I'm doing as well.
Dude, I mean, I actually totally see it in the Changeling record. When you were saying that, I'm like, things are popping off in my head. Like this is exactly where he was going with this record.
Yeah. And there's an album by Mike Oldfield called Amarok. I think it's from the 90s. I dare anybody who's really into the Changeling album to check that out. And I'm pretty sure they're going to discover some things where okay, I can see the similarities.
Yeah, no, I'll be diving in for sure.
Yeah. So it's definitely not metal at all. That was not in the picture. But yeah, so that was basically my intake of music. So I think from that age on, I never really thought in categories of, 3-minute songs and good music or bad music. And is it even okay to listen to a 20-minute piece of music? Is that allowed? I never asked myself these questions because for me, that was always part of, what the fascination of music.
Yeah. I definitely and again, you said your last track is what, 17 minutes, almost 17 minutes is the
Yeah.
last song. Yeah.
I think
And
the
I was
longest I've ever done was 23 or so on the Pitts Miniman project album from like 10 years ago. I think has the current record of a song that I participated in.
I don't that just goes back to the whole being wired to just we sit and watch an episode of a show that's 24 minutes right there, and you sat for that whole thing. Like, why couldn't you sit for an audio experience like that?
Yeah.
And we're more wired to enjoy something like that. Like Casey, do you like long songs if they're just going to keep you in it? Right, it's all about just keeping you in it.
100%, man. Yeah, I mean, it's like it's almost funny, like the super short songs, like punk songs or something, where it's like a minute and a half kind of thing.
Well, those have their place too in the grind.
No, I'm saying they're great. No, I'm saying I love it. Like, and so for me, there's no like, rules, and like I think that, especially like on this Changeling album, like when I hear something like that, I'm like, this is like a compositional piece of like something, I have less of like boundaries even when I hear something that's that orchestrated, so it's like, and I don't really care like anyways, but there's just been a formula, like 3-minute songs where you try to get them on the radio, this and that, and or like, you have an album track, 10 tracks or 8 tracks and all that. But no, I think, dude, like if it works, it works. Like that's the whole thing. And like, and I just to throw out again, like I've heard a lot of bands and or projects do that kind of thing where they have really long songs, and sometimes I'm like, this is great, and sometimes it's like, oh, it's a little bit long, but on the Changeling album, there's nothing, I have no like, nothing is out of place. It's like perfectly like, it makes total sense. So
thank you,
great job on how you did that, man.
It makes you anticipate what's going to happen next, and it happens throughout the whole album. You're in a section, and I'm like, this is fucking great right here. Like, where is it going to go after this?
It's interesting, right? It's like, it's just like, dude, this is like.
Let me be honest about that. Like, I know this is going to sound arrogant to some people. I've heard that. I've gotten that feedback, but it's like the way that I write music and the way that I want to hear music that I enjoy, because I guess that goes for all of us, right? We want to make music that we could listen to ourselves and enjoy. Like we're trying to make ourselves happy. And if I don't have these elements that you guys just mentioned, that it has an interesting structure that keeps me on my toes, but also doesn't sound cobbled together, something that works, that makes sense, but also gives you surprises, like a good movie, like a good TV show. Like, where this is going, but you still are like on the edge of your seat of what's happening. Like, if I don't have these elements, I'm not even starting.
Yeah.
Like that's the foundation. Like, if I don't have that, and obviously I've written a ton of stuff that doesn't have that so much, and I wouldn't release that because that's like a failed mission then in that case.
That's cool. I mean, there's nothing bad or egotistical about caring about your art or trying your best. Like, I mean, that's, to me, like, that's rad. It's like, why are certain movies so good or certain, compositions so good? It's like, dude, like putting work into something is a good thing, and like that it's. 100%. But I think that the thing that's important is that it's not just that like more is more kind of thing, where it's like, okay, well, if I just do all these things and I'm going to change styles and genres and do this and go back and forth and make it all like, that's not easy to do, like to pull it off. Right. And like, and there's a bunch of bands out there, like, and I'm not even going to name any or whatever. They're all good or some are better. They're at that. I mean, it's all personal opinion, but really like, I just think that is, I mean, I would have trouble writing an album like that. Like, that'd be very, I don't know if I could pull that off, I mean, that's crazy. So it's like, really, it's, to me, that's what's so cool about it, is like, first of all, that's really hard to do. And that you can tell there's a lot of work and love and creative love that like, you know, like that drive to just I have these ideas and I want to produce them and then I want to show them to other people. Like that's a really cool thing, you know. And like, you know, when certain albums were made, like how did they even imagine, like going back to stuff like Suffocation Pierced From Within or something, you were just like, how in the fuck did they think of this, like, and create that sound and everything? Or Necrophagist, like stuff like that, you're just like, the genius behind things like that is so cool. And so yeah, to me, just, but the most important part of this album to me is that, dude, I want to listen to it. Like, it's not like I'm like forcing myself, oh, this is so crazy, or like, wow, this is so out there. Like, well, it's like, dude, this is like, talk about cookies and like ear candy and stuff. Like, dude, this is like, it's got all the craziness, but it's freaking fun to listen to. And it's like mind blowing. Like, and it's, to me, fresh. Like, I haven't really heard it sounds very original to me. Like just the stuff, like the riffs, the soloing, like it's very like, this is fresh, dude. Like yeah, it's really cool. That's all.
Dude, thank you so much. I feel like I'm getting all the cookies right now with this.
Yeah,
I love that you mentioned cookies. I'll never not use that term because it talks about your build up to a climax.
That's what he was talking about earlier. Yeah, you know, like I don't know. Are you familiar with how Jonas and the Spawn guys talk about cookies? And
no.
Okay, so it's kind of like what you were already talking about with compositions, like building up into this like thing that like releases, so building tension and release, like but doing it in a way that's just really keeps you on your toes and really interesting. And then it's like this, you know, and then like when you hear the solo come in, you're like, it's just like beautiful. Like it's like it's not just there for no reason. Like it's built up to that, you know, and then it's just like boom, and then you're like, yes, you know, like, so it's just yeah. So
it's like scaling a summit and finally getting to the top, and that's where it happens, dude. Exactly. And it's a cookie. That's the cookie, dude. That's
for sure.
You know,
and I can, without knowing Jonas at all, I've never talked to him or met him, but I can see that line of thinking for sure. Like I was, like I told you earlier, I haven't heard the Retrophosis album yet, but I was way into Incurso when it came out, and
nice.
saw the band at that time also when they were touring with Obscura, and I always found myself latching on to the more intricate, you know, journey-like compositions as well. I think Jonas, I don't know if he still does that, but if he does, I think it's awesome.
I think you should definitely listen to that Retrophosis structure. You would have a good time with the new Retro for sure.
Well, I'm planning on having that when I was telling this to Casey earlier, that it's just right now being still in the album cycle for Changeling, which is death metal enough. I wouldn't be able to sit through an hour of death metal just because it's too close to what I'm spending my day doing. So the heaviest stuff on my playlist right now is probably Enya or some shit.
Hey,
shout out,
dude. Hey, I back it. I'm all for I mean, I can't marinate in one thing for too long. Maybe that's some of my pre-ADD type shit, but it is like, yeah, if I'm like working on something, which I am right now, Casey knows I'm slowly working on the new Odius, hopefully going to be fucking ready for it when I'm recording it. But now that I'm starting to listen to just Odius Mortem, I can't listen to, but Changeling had there's enough black metal and there's other elements to it. There's world music involved in the Changeling. Like I'm not just sitting in one thing when I was listening to the Changeling, which like staying away from metal right now, that actually was a big surprise to me that I had that much of a good time, because I am just listening to Odius right now. And Odius is the extreme metal thing that I just have to keep pushing into my ears right now. So it's like more so listening to hip hop and jazz and
I know how that is too. When you write, produce, put out an album, you're kind of in it for a while, right? You know, like, and and it's you go through periods where you like listen to it and you're like, okay, it's out, and then you're perceiving it like again, and it's like it takes, especially an album like that, you know, it's there's so much each time you hear something different, I'm sure, you know. And I mean, and I've only listened to it a handful of times so far, but yeah, I think it was kind of like that with the retro album. Like when that came out, I was like listening to it, and of course I had it before, and then when it comes out, you're like, oh, you know, you're excited, you want to hear it like different platforms in the car or like whatever. And like, but I kind of played it out to where I'm like, I don't listen to it all the time anymore. I kind of do sometimes, but it's like you have to go through that cycle, kind of let it, you know,
For sure. But maybe it's also different. Are you involved in the production side of things too?
Oh, no, not really. I mean, not like, I mean, I did the drums with Zach Oren here in Oakland, well, in California, but up in Oakland. And you know, he's done a lot of our albums, the Decrepit albums and Odius and stuff. And I love recording drums with Zach. He's just like great, but he's basically the only like American part of that project. And then it got sent over, and then it was done in Sweden, you know, all the rest of it. So, but yeah, I'm like terrible at production, dude. I try. I have a little studio and I kind of goof around with it, but I'm more into just tracking, you know. Like, let me get my tracks and stuff, and you know, but
the reason I'm asking is just because for me personally is because I'm so involved in every step of the production, and the only reason I didn't also master this album is so I didn't do the mastering this time myself just because of pure exhaustion. I just couldn't do it. I was completely blocked.
Okay.
And so my point being that if I'm done with an album that I also then produce, orchestrate, engineer, mix, master, I never want to hear the fucking thing again.
I was just gonna say, well, how long does it take for you to revisit an album that you've done? Never.
I could be diplomatic and say, well, about this long, but it rarely ever happens.
Really?
Yeah, and there's some album, you know, it's also like some albums that are not only where you go through these different stages of it, but also that are sonically so intense, you know, that once you're done creeping into every little corner of it, you're good. You're good forever.
Yeah.
See, I kind of look at it. Oh, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I'm just saying that it doesn't have to have anything to do with the music that's on it, whether you like it or dislike it or something. It's just, for me personally, once I move on from that, I move on. But I'm also extremely obsessive perfectionist. So that means once I'm done with an album, I have gone to 120% to my own physical detriment of working on it. So I'm literally letting it go for my own sake, for my own well-being.
Yeah.
And then if I engage with it later, and you know, please don't let me engage with it too early, because the only thing I'm going to hear is the flaws.
You're going to be super critical, hypercritical. Yeah.
And it's going to be very interesting because so today's Saturday, and on Wednesday and Friday, we're going to have public listening sessions for the Atmos mix of Changeling, which I'm super, super proud of. And that's going to be the first time I'm hearing this album since I've completed it start to finish. So I'm kind of like excited, but also a little bit anxious. What if I hate it?
Well, I mean, those flaws, though, I mean, I feel like a broken record when I say it. The flaws are what keeps us going, though, dude. You're trying to, exceed or minimize the amount of flaws, because there's always going to be the flaws, especially if we're our own worst critic. You know, we're going to find the things that other people aren't hearing.
Yeah.
Because we actually executed those things. So they've been with us since we did it, but it was just like, you said you did your 120%. And as a listener, I don't find the flaws because I'm seeing your final product and I'm experiencing your final product as it is for the first time. second time. I mean, I did sample songs, but my first full immersive experience of it was yesterday. I wanted it to be fresh in my head, front to back, and like I said, I don't see any of those flaws, but that's the whole point. It's like it's all our perception, and once you put it out into the world, it's accepted and perceived and experienced, and however the individual's gonna do it, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
I think also in my personal position, wearing many hats, that's maybe not even such a great thing to aspire to, because then also you accumulate all the different things that you could find flaw with potentially. You know what I mean? So if I do an album start to finish of my own material, I can find fault in the writing, in the arranging, in the engineering, in the production, in everything to the last bit. And it's really important to, you know, to have a somewhat healthy relationship with that and to develop that, so you can accept that, move on, have goals, healthy goals for next time, for sure. But for me personally, as a person with PTSD, as a person, I haven't been diagnosed, but also probably ADHD, and being like perfectionist to a fault when it comes to my own material, I know that I am healthier if I don't engage with it and just move on to the next thing.
So you mentioned PTSD. Is that linked to the heart situation?
No, not at all.
No. Okay. Well, I mean, if you don't want to disclose it, I'll move
no,
on.
it's fine. We can talk about that. It's not like, it's also in my personal interest to talk about that, because I have had the good fortune, like I've had the bad fortune for that to be like a main thing in my life, but I've had the good fortune to be able to turn that around,
Nice.
to now be a, you know, that I can offer service to other people who may struggle with things. So one of the things that I started doing in the pandemic is to give coaching sessions for people, musicians, artists who struggle with all the different things that I've encountered, have read on, have people in my life that have suffered through myself in various formats, so I can offer a perspective of experience, and like a non-judgmental space for people to really share what's going on and to find possible solutions. So that's been like one of the most rewarding things in my life, like just this close after having two kids. And so yeah, it's both, and I'm very fine talking about it. But that's like, remember when I asked you to downsize the screen? I don't know if you can call that body dysmorphia, but I hate looking at myself. It's a classic PTSD thing. I cannot be on camera. I can talk to you guys. Like right now, I'm not talking to a camera. I'm talking to two cool dudes.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah.
The
moment I start focusing on the camera, I'm gone. My hands will shake.
Yeah.
My voice will crack. And that's one of the main reasons why I struggle so much with social media. Like selling myself, putting myself on camera, to me is torture. Always has been. It just took me decades to really get to the bottom of that and to find out why that is the case, you know. But finding out that it's the case is a great step, but it's still like an ongoing obstacle. I'm working on it. I've been working on it for the past 2 decades. I don't know if I'm ever going to be a person who's like engaging with social media on that level, but it is what it is.
I mean, it's probably, it's better than being sucked into social media too, and having that be your main reality, you know, which, you know, that's the opposite side of the spectrum, where it's just like, there's people that are literally just living in a virtual world, you know?
True. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I said, I have 2 kids. They're teenagers now. So we negotiate all of that constantly, you know,
Right.
because they have that pull all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got a 13-year-old, and he definitely, I'm telling him to get off his phone plenty of times, dude, throughout the day. But they
Sure.
it's like it's so much more part of their culture, you know.
Yeah.
We were old enough to experience pre-internet, and now they are born into screens and iPads and shit like that, you know. And I mean, we never ever just like let our kids sit just for hours on that type of shit, but they had enough, you know, exposure to it that now it's like just so I'm asking my 9-year-old about how to work the iPad and shit like that.
Very relatable. Very relatable.
And same thing, like I accidentally updated my phone and now I'm fucked, dude. I'm just like I literally everything, all the icons changed colors and shit. Like I couldn't figure out how to turn my Bluetooth off or on, and my teenager just took my phone out of boop, boop, beep, beep. Oh, sick, dude. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, digital natives. There you go.
What's that?
Digital natives.
Yeah, I know. That's what it is. They're born into that culture. We've evolved to become a digital society and all that kind of shit. So yeah, I'm the type that are going to be left in the fucking wake. You know, they're eventually just going to give up on me.
We don't know that. We don't know. There's so many good and bad sides to that.
Yeah,
you know, it's like if you ask me as a musician, as somebody who's struggled with his place or the lack thereof in the music industry for the past 2 decades, it's been absolutely fucking brutal for me not being able to do what other people do with social media, and as a guitar player, not being able to sell yourself in that way. Fucking brutal. Like it's I don't know where I would be if I had that ability. But then on the other hand, as a human being, as a man, there's so many things I think that I can bring to the table, that I can offer, perspectives that I have that come from not being in that world. I think I have come to recognize as very valuable.
Hell yeah, dude.
I think that probably everybody goes through that balance in some way. The question is just how can we find the things that define us positively, that are outside of the current flow of and trend of society. And there's always something. This is what I do as a coach, basically. I work with people to find the things that are inherent to them that may not be obvious to them at that point, and to bring that out and to get them to a point where they can accept that as something valuable, rather than thinking about the things that don't work in the same way that it does work for everybody else. So
right. Well, all right, let's take it off the let's get a little more light-footed again and get back to after 11. So
yeah.
discovery of metal, dude. Let's hear about like the discovery of metal and how you decided to dig into that. Obviously, you were listening to the 70s prog stuff, but I'm talking more like the heavy shit. When did you find the heavy stuff?
I think I have to give credit to my pops again. So he never was a big metal dude, but he had friends, and then his friends would come over, and because he was such a big music nerd, then obviously they would trade tapes and LPs, and so there was like always a stack of CDs at the house that were just borrowed from people. Not like, hey, can I borrow that? But people would actively bring like, okay, so this is for you to check out. So there was a stack of that, and obviously, being I was the only child, and I'm gonna check that shit out, right? So he had metal friends, or people that got way more into metal, and then that came right when I was beginning to become a teenager. And so, whoa, what the fuck is that? You're looking at the album cover, and this is gonna be just something different.
Wild, yeah.
And and then suddenly you're 12, 13, and you're not listening to Jeff Rotel, with the friendly bearded dude on the cover anymore, but now it's Def or Cynic or Iron Maiden, right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty natural, journey from
That's
one
crazy.
thing.
So your dad had friends that would say, check out Death, check
Not
out Cynic.
specifically, but they
Oh.
would kind of just pass what they were into around, and then my dad wouldn't be into it don't necessarily, but there was like gateway bands,
Yeah.
the classics, Sabbath and Maiden probably, even though that came later for me, Judas Priest for sure, things like that. And so then I would pick up on that. But I also specifically remember being at one of those dudes' houses, one of my dad's friends, and he was like a leather and chains kind of guy. Like he had the patches and everything. And I remember flipping through his CD collection, then seeing just the name Death. I was like, oh shit.
Hell
Right.
yeah.
And I just had to check that out. And I don't remember if it was the Sound of Perseverance, which had just came out, or if it was Human. I think it must have been Human, but that was my first contact with death metal. And then I think basically the same week or the same month, through that same connection, I discovered Cynic Focus. So it was
Beautiful.
only gonna go downhill from that.
Oh yeah. If you and with everything you had already heard in prog music and stuff, you were already you had the software going that was ready to take elements of both those bands. Really, if you're listening to Sounds of Perseverance, there's some prog aspects to that, and obviously Focus has plenty. It's really strange how like you can have backdoor software come through one band to be able to accept a whole new band later on down the road.
Yeah, totally. And so I think that was the moment where I then also just felt like, okay, I need heavy music in my life. That was like a no turning back kind of thing, as you guys probably experience as well. But to get back to the storyline, around that time, a little bit earlier, one of my dad's friends, he had a CD that he had borrowed to my dad, and it had an interesting cover, and it just lay there. And my parents were gone doing something, I don't know. And I specifically remember looking at the cover and being like, okay, this looks really cool. As a kid, you're like, okay, it must be cool because it looks cool. And it was a greenish cover, and there was a dude with long hair flying in the wind, and he was holding like a shiny metal looking guitar with like a mirror finish, and then he was jumping from one giant space clock to another giant space clock. I was like, holy shit, what is that? And I put it on, and I remember that I had the volume up way too high. So it comes on, and I still remember like it was yesterday. The first song is like dun 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 ba dun 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 dun. So like this drum intro, and then there's just one like multi-tracked giant E chord, and the album is Joe Satriani, Time Machine.
And it sounded like some Satriani style cover.
Yeah, and just that E chord coming in and being like exploding into a living room. That was the thing. Like that moment basically was telling me, okay, so this is what I want to do with my life from now. I want to create that hair being blown back by the intensity of the music kind of moment. I want to create that for other people.
Yeah.
I want to be that guy on the cover.
Man, that's so cool, dude.
Clock to the next.
Yes, dude. I mean, that's just really cool how just seconds of the beginning of an album could totally change your path as a guitar player, Like that's the direction as a guitar player I'm going to go right there. And Satriani, yeah, dude. Satriani live was sick. I saw him at Warfield, and it was a great show. I mean, I'm a casual Satriani fan. I couldn't tell you too much about, what songs I liked or whatever, but I just know that as a live experience, it was fucking cool.
Let me tell you something. I saw Satriani with his fucking trio lineup years and years ago, like 15 years ago. It was the loudest show I have ever seen.
Yeah.
By far. It was inhumanly loud. A couple of years later, I saw Sun play in Berlin. Not as loud as fucking Joe Satriani. For whatever
Wow.
reason, but it was just unbelievably loud. Like my teeth were moving from the sound.
Oh man, that's an interesting experience, dude. And your teeth rattling in your head, it's so loud.
Yeah.
I've actually been at a drag. I've been at a drag race where my eyes were vibrating from how loud the cars were.
Oh, that's crazy. Okay, I've
Yeah.
never seen that. Wow.
All right, more weeds.
It took me a second here, but I wanted to see what that looked like. I had to find like a big enough image, but
Oh yeah,
that's
there it is.
the cover he's talking about.
That's rad,
From one
dude.
space clock to the next. When you still had hair.
Yeah, dude.
Are they all
that
set at
before-
the same time? Oh, look, they're actually going. It looks like time is moving on those clocks up at
That's
the
actually
top.
funny. I've never really thought
Oh,
about
really?
that. If the clocks are
No, they're
different.
all set at the same
They're the
time.
same. Yeah.
No, but look at the upper side of it. There's definitely, I don't know if they're just switching positions and they're actually just the same image, but it looks like to me like there's different times going on.
So yeah, that's actually maybe it's just an illusion in how they're angled, but it does. I mean, I'm getting too into it, but the top three is where I was tripping. Is like is each one a minute later? But no, I think it's just the
I think
angle.
they're all 10 and 2, right? Like,
Yeah.
Could be. Well, I mean, thank God I'm
250.
a musician and not a visual artist because
I
I
have
can't.
no
fucking
idea.
tell.
I know it's like, how do you even read a clock anymore? I don't even
What
know.
if you find out that Joe Satriani was born at 2:50 a.m. or
Oh,
whatever?
right, yeah.
and
Oh,
like,
that'd be a nice little
Yeah.
tidbit. Yeah.
Was that before surfing with the alien or?
That was after. I think surfing is
After.
like mid 80s. This must be
Okay.
early 90s, I think.
Ah, okay, cool.
so
But yeah,
Satriani.
that was the moment.
What about death metal per se? Like the first time you heard growling?
It did take me a while to get into that. I think I was into death metal despite the vocals for a long time, and then at some point I kind of got it. But it took me a while for sure.
Mm-hmm.
It always
But-
does in some way for everyone a little bit, right? Like everyone kind of has to
for sure.
get kind of, it's like a
It's funny how
acquired
that
taste.
goes sometimes. Like my
Yeah.
go on a little side tangent. Like I told you guys, I've just completed the Dolby Atmos spatial audio mix for Changeling, which is super important to me. And I worked with another engineer, Eric, and he's not a metal guy at all. And so like over the course of working on this album together, like I could literally see him going from I don't know, man, regarding the vocal style, and just also being like, I can't tell you if the vocals are loud enough because I can't understand a damn thing, to like the opposite, and now just being really tuned in at the end of the process into what makes it tick and where it has to sit and what is intelligible, what's not intelligible. It was really cool to see that progression and see him
Right.
getting his inner metalhead unleashed.
How does that work with that kind of mix? Like, will that be released like on streaming, or how do people hear? Yeah.
Sorry guys, I gotta go take a leak. I'll be right back.
Go for it,
That is
dude.
perfect because I'm gonna launch into a long rant now.
Cool. Nice.
I'll be
Yeah.
right
Let's hear
back.
about.
Sure.
I'm really curious about that. Like,
Dude, it's my favorite thing in the last couple of years. Guttural vocals suck. Yeah.
from Guttural Reef.
So there's a little bit of a story there. Like my dad at one point, like we were pretty poor, but at one point he got a new job, and the first thing he does is get like a big pair of speakers and do a home surround theater kind of thing, Dolby Surround 5.1 back in the 90s. And so I was around, and that was just a fleeting thing. Then we didn't have money anymore and he had to sell it. There it goes. So I was always aware of surround sound, and even like my first show on my dad's shoulders, basically, when I was 10 years old, was Pink Floyd, and it was, they had the quadraphonic sound, right? And so I was always aware of that, but I never really considered it for music so much. And then a couple of years ago, during the pandemic, I got invited to the Rammstein record release party where they played
Sick.
their latest album in Atmos in a theater. And I just went there as like a social situation kind of thing. Okay, got nothing going on. Okay, cool. Let's do that. Nice. And it completely blew my mind because
Wow.
there's two things. So this is where I'm gonna go into rant mode, just warning you. So
Cool. Yeah.
like if you're doing heavy music, especially on the production and mixing side, there's these two things that you are really struggling with to make work, that we struggle with all the time, which is like metal in itself is the most difficult music to mix, period, because we're trying to cram all this volume, all this distortion into two speakers, right? And those speakers nowadays get smaller and smaller anyway, so we have to invent all kinds of new trickery to get a mix to pop through and get everything to sit. And I don't need to tell you about the loudness wars and everything. So metal music with the volume, the distortion, the intensity is fucking difficult to get right as a mixing engineer. And so to get all of that through two speakers is hard. And then once you get to people like myself or Devin Townsend or I don't know, any other bands like maybe Flash God Apocalypse, so people who do some sort of extreme metal or metal in general, and then there's orchestral elements and there's choirs, there's all this layering of different elements, then this problem intensifies, right? You like what kind of membrane do you want to have, do you need to have all these layers of information, of sonic information translate? It's crazy, right? And so in the process of that, which is the other problem, in the process of that, metal has become so undynamic. And I'm gonna date myself here and like reveal my age, I think is the proper term, and be a bit of a dad and say, well, I fucking hate how modern metal sounds.
Right.
And it's not to say that I don't like some stuff. Like I love Rivers of Nile, and their production fits their music. But honestly, I love Rivers of Nile to death. But after an hour of that kind of production, I'm exhausted. And that's like as good as it gets, I think, in that vein. So no shade thrown here whatsoever. But just saying, like this lack of dynamics, I think, is not a great development. And so these two problems are plaguing me as a mixing engineer and as a producer, and have been plaguing, I think, everybody in the industry. Some people deal with that in different ways. And there's insanely creative people coming from that who use that to their advantage, like Buster Odenholm of Humanity's Last Breath. Amazing. However, the problem persists. So now, fast forward, I'm in this Rammstein record release party. I'm not even a big Rammstein fan, but suddenly it's in Atmos, and suddenly I hear two things. I hear the biggest band I've ever heard in my life, because suddenly the sheer amount of membrane is all around the room, and it's not like you have to cram the guitars, the drums, the bass, the orchestration, the vocals, the keyboards, everything through these two speakers, but suddenly everything has its place in the room, and so everything is full range, and it has the biggest drums, the biggest bass, the biggest guitars, the biggest vocals, and then it's a fucking choir coming from the ceiling, and my mind is just blown. I'm like, this is what I have been searching for.
Yeah, dude. Well, one question.
Yeah, before you move on, just also at the same time, my brain was spinning. Okay, well, if that is sonically possible, then the creative implications of that, of what you can do by placing music all across the room, just pew. So, passing the mic.
So sick. I love it, dude. So my question is just about like how many speakers were set up, and like, is it like a theater where it's just like a whole bunch of speakers, or is it like certain amount.
In that environment, I think probably 20-25 speakers.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's the great thing about one of the great things about Atmos is that it's the first format ever that is scalable. So that means that if you have like Changeling, for example, we mixed in 7.1.4, meaning that we have a front speaker, 2 stereo front speakers, 2 side speakers, 2 in the back on your ear level. Then we have a subwoofer, which is the +1, the
Mhm.
0.1, and then 4 on the ceiling.
Wow.
And that's that's an environment where we can mix, where I could mix the album in 360-degree space, basically. And so
Yeah. Okay.
now the format itself, the technology behind it, takes care of scaling that down or scaling that up depending on your listening environment. So if you, for some reason, if you're Jeff fucking Bezos and you can afford like a home theater, then obviously you can go bigger and bigger, and you can have, I don't know, 9.1 plus 4 or plus 8 or whatever. And the format takes care of that, of the translation. But also if you have like a sound bar or even on headphones, you can listen to the Atmos mix. I wouldn't recommend it because it's not, if you have 2 speakers, then listen to the stereo mix, please. Because that's what it's made for. But it's the first time in history that we don't have to, as audio engineers, we don't have to mix for stereo differently than we have to mix for 5.1 and then 7.1 or any of those different formats. I still did a completely different mix for stereo because the stereo mix had to be done way earlier than the Atmos mix.
Sure.
But theoretically, you could make one Atmos mix and then that's everything. You could do that.
Right.
And
Okay.
if you allow me to rant a little bit more, the problem with that is, wasn't that nice how I was like, hey, if you allow me to rant a little bit more, but I'm not even going to stop to wait for your answer. I'm just going to do it. Sorry.
It's all good, dude. Green light, man.
But this is like one of my favorite topics. Like I've become an evangelist for this.
I'm super interested in it. I'm sure our listeners are too. It's really cool.
Well, I hope they do because it's going to get even nerdier. So...
By the way, Anthony's internet went down. He's trying to reset his router modem real quick. So
all right,
should be back.
So anyway, the problem or let me phrase it a different way. So then from that experience, I went into making Changeling, and from the get-go, I was convinced that I needed to write and produce this album for spatial audio.
Okay.
So basically, the stereo version is a watered down thing of what I wrote, because so you've heard the album. So remember Abyss with the choir. That's above you.
Cool.
And then, for example, the beginning of Anathema, of the final track, there's these trombones going da 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 da, and then in stereo it's like left, right. But actually, what it's written for is front, back, front, back. On one level, and then there's a bass note doubled 4 times, which is lower than that. So it's like 4 speakers doing the drone, and then 4 other sources doing the back and forth. And so it's all written out like that. And I had written storyboards and drafts, like visually drafting what the storyboarding of the album would be. And I think that's also the reason why some people have been overwhelmed by the album, by the layering, because they're literally listening on not enough speakers for it.
Yeah.
All of that being said, so I conceptualized that for spatial audio, and I was convinced that I would be making the first extreme metal album for the format, which has come to be true. And so then the problem was I didn't have the technology at home. I don't have the means to invest $10,000 into like a Atmos home studio, right? And so it took me took me a while to get there, and then I found this absolute madman of a dude whose name is Eric, and he turns out. So I just randomly connected with him on Facebook, and he's like, "Hey, I'm doing Atmos. I have a established studio. If you're trying to get into the field, hit me up and we can talk." And I hit him up, and I went to his studio. Turns out he was also assistant engineer on that Rammstein album.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and so he completely got into the game with me, and we ended up 50-50 back-to-back mixing the album, me telling exactly where everything needs to be and how it should sound, remixing it from the ground up, him doing the Pro Tools manual labor, because we could only do it in Pro Tools. And so now it's done. And one of the things that we did before we started to get to work was we listened to what is out there and what does metal sound like in this format in spatial audio out there right now. And I got really excited seeing some of my favorite artists in that Apple Music spatial audio list: Ishan, Dimmu Borgir, whatever, Blind Guardian, things like that.
Dude.
And everything fucking sucked.
It sucks.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for throwing shade now, but the only album that sounded decent in Atmos was the latest Animals as Leaders. Everything else was
that makes sense.
Even things that I really enjoyed in the stereo mix. And people that I respect to the moon and back, but still these Atmos mixes were not great. They were definitely not better than the stereo version. They didn't take full advantage of the format. And so fortunately, because Eric and we turned out to be the same kind of delusional that you have to be for an undertaking like that, we basically just looked at each other and be like, okay, but we're going to do this. We're going to find out what it is that makes metal not work in this format so far, and we're going to change that. And we have. And the Atmos mix, if you hear it in surround sound, in 7.1.4, or at least in 5.1, I'm not one to hyperbole and to sell things, but I can tell you right now, it's the fucking best thing on the market because it's truly immersive. It's really living up to the name. And one of the things, for example, that I found out once we started working on it was like, well, metal depends on having a wall of sound, right? And if you have guitars, you want a wall of guitars. That's why everything is, in double tracked in stereo. And on Changeling, I didn't use quad tracking. Wouldn't have made sense to me, right? And so but I did have all these layers of different guitars and different reamp versions. And so I was convinced that would be enough. Well, turns out it wasn't. And now I had to go back and learn the entire album again and re-record 2 additional rhythm guitars for the entire album, 60 minutes of music. Jeez. For the Atmos version, so that I have true quad tracking for the rhythm guitars so that they live in 4 different speakers, because otherwise it turns out you can't really get you can't go from the wall of sound to the room of sound.
Oh, that's so cool.
So that's so you saying that in my head right now this whole time I'm thinking about when I can jump in and say how cool would it be to have like a music video or cinematic like thing that would be in virtual reality where you can have true spatial sound where if you move around the sound changes, but like things are coming at you from in that space. You're saying you can't be in the room. Well, what if you could stand in the room? That's
exactly the thing, dude. You are in the center of the action now.
Yeah.
And the way we mixed it, there was this other thing, this other hump that we had to get over, and that we found out was holding people back so far. And which is that, like I told you earlier, that the format takes care of the translation, and that you can mix it in Atmos on a big setup, and then basically everybody can listen to it on headphones and still have listened to the mix, even though it's not immersive, it's not surround. So that's super fucking cool that exists. The problem is what the corporate world has done is pure fucking gaslighting. So people are being gaslit into believing that if they have a pair of headphones and they listen to an Atmos mix, they're gonna have a good experience and they're gonna have an immersive sound experience, which is physically impossible.
Mm-hmm.
If you have two speakers, you will not hear surround sound. There's all sorts of little tricks and little things that companies have built, like Apple with like the
Smoke
head
and
tracking.
mirrors.
But it's still
Mhm.
stereo. And if you mix this album and in 7.1.4 like we did, there comes the point where you have to make a decision. So do you commit 100% to this and do you make this the best it can possibly be in surround sound, or do you always go the middle way and you kind of limit your possibilities by saying it also has to sound good on headphones? And so we thought about that for a minute, and then I basically made the call to say, just fuck the stereo version, fuck the headphone version. It's probably going to turn a bunch of people off who don't have the backstory, and they're going to listen to it thinking, okay, awesome, Changeling in Atmos, let me get out my earpods. And they're going to listen to it and they're like, this doesn't sound better. I think I even like the stereo mix more, which is probably what's going to happen. But I also can guarantee that that people who are going to listen to this in Atmos, in a proper Atmos setup, they're going to have a listening experience not unlike to what I experienced with that Satriani album as a kid. It's going to make them freak the fuck out.
So what's like a minimum setup to have to really listen to it in Atmos like that? Like what kind of speakers setup? You've kind of already said, but I just want to get your.
I think 5.1 would be the minimum, because then you get the immersive room of sound, basically, even though you don't have the height element. But 5.1 means that you have it happening all around you as the minimum, and I think that's.
Is that like a center and two sides and then two behind you, or how does that look designed?
5.1 would be two rear speakers, two stereo speakers, and then one center.
Yeah. So basically, if you're listening, if you have an expensive sound bar but you don't have any speakers behind you, you're getting duped by the corporations you were talking about earlier. Like,
more or less. Yeah.
Because there's the sound bar, but if it's all in front of you, obviously, like I do have an old school Sony setup from my old home where I did set up the two rear speakers, the two front speakers with the center speaker. And that was, Casey, you've been over and we watched Casey and I watched Prometheus with 3D glasses on
yeah, that's right. Forgot that was a long time ago.
When Blu-ray was still the best, now that I don't even know what 4K. It was like Blu-ray on a 1080p at the time, but we did have the full speaker experience with the subwoofer too. And it was actually pretty dope, But I wish I don't have that set up now. I do have this sound bar that's making it, easy for the my wife and kids when they're watching in the living room, but I still need that set up. So I'm eventually.
The reason I'm asking is I do have a 5-channel and I have a sub too, so it'd be 6, I guess. But I used to have these two actually, or no, they're actually down here. The two, they're under here. They should be behind me. I just haven't, since I moved in, I haven't. And I'm like sitting here thinking, I'm like, there's this like little thing above where it goes to my bed was like curtains. I could put the speakers up there. I just got to get some longer cables, and like I should totally set that up, dude, because it would be really cool to have the.
If you were to do that and then check out the Atmos version of Changeling, I think you're gonna enjoy that.
Yeah.
But I didn't even answer your question from the beginning. So having so many channels also means that this is very hard to put on physical product because the amount of data is just so much higher. Like now we got it dialed in and it's not as big as it was. That's what she said. But The first mix, the first rough mix that we did of Abyss was almost 6 gigabytes big, and then we were
Yeah.
like, oh shit, what happens once we get to Anathema with its 17-minute runtime?
Yeah.
Fortunately, now we developed a system where it's not as big, but still like the whole album, I think is about 35 gigabytes. So you can only do that on streaming with a good internet connection.
Yeah.
And again, it's probably something that will exclude a few people. And it's like, what do you do? Like you feel the calling, you have the chance of doing something that
Yeah.
could potentially be of value, like a game changer. Like when people
Yeah.
say like this is a game changing thing, what they mean is that you can offer something of value that will leave your little piece or your little bubble of the world a little bit different than it was before. And I think that's a great thing to aspire to. And I
Dude,
think
totally.
that's always when you do that. I mean, I'm the dude who brought fretless guitar to metal, right? So I should know about a thing about that. Once you start doing these things, there will be pushback and there will be a lot of people who don't get it and who will not like it. And that's fine. That's totally fine. But you have to make a decision whether or not you want to honor that calling and go all in and then maybe fall flat on your face, or you kind of do a middle thing. And I decided to go all in with the Atmos version. And next week we're going to hear it. Like many of the album people are going to come and hopefully some press and hear it in like a proper 7.1 setup, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice. So will it be available like on Apple Music and stuff?
Yeah.
Or like, yeah. Okay.
It will be available on Apple Music. A couple of other providers as well. I think Tidal is definitely doing spatial audio. I'm not sure about Amazon, but most definitely Apple Music. Spotify doesn't yet offer it, but I hear that that's going to be happening in the future. And yeah, then on Apple Music, when you go to Changeling, there's going to be a little Dolby symbol. You just click on that, and then you can switch to the
okay.
the Atmos version.
Dude, I'm like nerding out because I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, like I have all the things. I have like gigabit internet, like, and I got it plugged directly in. And the Apple TV I have now does support Dolby. Like it already is playing Dolby, like for movies and stuff like that. And I'm like, dude, I'm like ready, dude. I'm gonna get these speakers going like today. I'm gonna go to Best Buy probably and get some.
If you hook that up, you can basically listen to Atmos stuff now. You won't get the full experience, but you will get a surround thing going.
Yeah. And is that going to be available next week?
No, that's gonna. I would hope it. I hoped it would be earlier, but currently I think the date I have is May 30th.
Oh, okay.
Which is still okay. It's like a 1 month after the stereo version. That's fine.
Yeah.
I hoped it would be earlier, but it is what it is.
Dude,
Casey's like, is that gonna be available at the end of this episode?
Yeah.
But, if you want, I can send you a reminder if I don't forget. I probably will.
Yeah. All good, dude. That's
and
so
then
cool, man.
The next step for me is I would really also love to offer this to other people and to to people that would want to work with me as an engineer. I would love to offer people to remix their back catalog for Atmos or do new stuff with all the things that myself and Eric that we've learned now. I mean, honestly, now we're talking past this experience of like living, breathing, shitting, and sweating this Atmos mix for the past couple of weeks, like absolute madman. Like, you know how that is on an album. You're working on something, and then oftentimes the things that have eluded you for months and months, like 5 minutes before the deadline, and like we figured it out. And so it was like this kind of trajectory. And so
My question about the Atmos stuff, which is that I'm sorry I missed it. My internet cut out if you guys talked about it, but what does that stand for something? Atmos?
Oh wow, I don't even know. I don't think it's
an acronym. No,
I don't think so.
Okay, and then my other question was, is there any other versions of things that are quality to you in the Atmos listening experience that you think people should check out?
What do you mean, kinds of things like
Like,
just examples?
yeah, examples of records or stuff that have been correctly remixed for that same realm that you're talking about.
Well, there's a few artists that are just now getting into it or have been getting into it for a few years. I know
Mhm.
Steven Wilson is a major proponent of Atmos, and like all his last 3 or 4 records are available in Atmos, and they're really good. Um, and yeah, I mean, there's by now there's Atmos mixes. I was telling the story earlier, I think, when you were having your internet troubles, of
Yeah.
how we also did check out before starting to work on my album. We started to listen to the Apple Music Metal and Atmos playlist, and
Mm.
none of it really lived up to our or my expectations.
I was here for that when you were saying that. So that's why I wanted to just see if there was any examples that you do praise as like
So
done
I can
well
tell
for
you
Atmos.
what I
Not
said
metal,
earlier.
not even metal, just any genre of music.
I thought that the latest Animals as Leaders albums was good, for sure.
Nice.
That's
Mhm.
cool. And other than that, I really do think that this Changeling is going to be the first one that makes the full use of that format.
Okay. All right.
And then
So we're
in the
breaking new
film
ground.
world, in the game world, that it's an old hat. Like filming, gaming, people have been using Atmos to full potential, forever, for almost 10 years now, with on and off. And
So like
like
movie soundtracks.
yeah, I saw Nosferatu like a couple of weeks back
Mhm.
in IMAX, and there's this
Okay.
scene.
Yeah.
You guys seen the movie Nosferatu?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
yet, but you can spoil it for me. It's okay.
I don't think it's a big spoiler, but there's a scene. Whole movie is great stylistically and audiovisually, but there's a scene where it's on a boat, and it's under deck on the boat. So there's like the
Mm.
what's the word, the where he's sleeping in the
The
coffin.
cabin.
Mhm.
Oh, the cabin.
Yeah.
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 The coffin is in the cabin in the boat, and so a character goes down and just to inspect the coffin, and there's rats everywhere, and the boat is creaking, and then so you and I remember that because my girlfriend had a hard time getting into the perception level of where everything is spatially, and she really wanted to experience the Atmos thing in a movie, and so took her to see Nosferatu. And like specifically remember telling her in that moment, like, hey, listen to where all the creaking comes from. Like you are in the ship right now. It's above, it's behind you. There's like voices right in the back of the room. You can feel the rumbling under your feet. This is the immersive thing we're talking about.
I just got it, dude. It's not an acronym. It's the beginning of the word atmosphere and what it would sound, in a certain atmosphere and how things would come to like, putting Nosferatu's voice behind your head would give you, a little bit of chill. I love this, dude, and it is weird to me that or it's not weird. Maybe it's just like audio specifically. It's all about setup. You would have to like, how cool would it be to just go experience an album sitting in a IMAX theater, obviously with like visuals that would go with the music and stuff like that. But to hear Changeling while you're sitting in the middle row of the middle row.
Funny enough, that was the origin story that I told to Casey earlier, because I got invited during the pandemic. I got invited to the release party of the latest Rammstein album, and they had an Atmos version, and that's where it clicked for me, because that was the moment when I heard heavy music, whether you like that band or not, doesn't matter. Heavy music in Atmos for the first time, and to just recap a little bit, my mind was blown by the creative possibilities instantly, but also by the fact that I realized that this is an answer, like an actual answer to a really deep problem that I have been facing, as as well as anybody else working in pro audio metal music has, that metal in stereo is requiring you to sacrifice so many things to make a mix translate, because
Mm-hmm.
the more information you have, especially with extreme metal where you have very high tempos, note values, blast beats, you have maybe you have an
Abrasive sounding.
you know,
Yeah.
music like that, music like Flash God Apocalypse, for example,
Right.
is not ideal for stereo. I'm telling you, it's just we have found ways to cope with that, but in the process of coping with that, of finding creative solutions for those problems, how to get everything to be audible and every instrument to translate to you, we have sacrificed dynamics, and we have sacrificed authenticity a lot of times, because the way that people go about I mean, we as musicians, we know how much trickery there is in modern metal albums.
Mhm.
Drum
Yeah.
performances, guitar performances, like half of it is fake as fuck.
Right.
Let me tell you, as the former guitar player of Obscura, it's fucking fake as fuck. And it's not all people being trying to deceive you about their instrumental prowess. There's an element of that for sure,
Mhm.
especially in Obscura. But in general, it's also a matter of how do you make that translate. And music like Necrophagist, Epitaph, that is an album. If it wasn't so tight, the music wouldn't work. It needs to be that tight. It needs to be so precise to have all these transients of all these fast notes and all the intricate rhythms and the blast beats to translate correctly. But once you spread that out across the room, you get a little bit of that agency back.
That's what I was. You're getting me to visualize this as you're talking, because I'm thinking of metal, specifically extreme metal, and how everything has to just be in stereo. It's panned left and right, but if I visualize the 360 degrees around my head and this way, basically a sphere around my head, I'm noticing that there's a lot of empty space between this section and this section. So if you were to spread that information out and have it, coming from different directions, then you'd be able to actually.
If you want to, I can give you a few spoilers of how Changeling works, and maybe other people will find even better solutions coming from that. But it's like, so we have these 4 guitars, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if there's an acoustic guitar or a clean guitar, it will probably live in the side speakers. And then, for example, the main vocals are kind of panned a little bit inward. They're like in the room in front of you. So they're coming from multiple sources, also from above. So they're like a little bit elevated. The bass is coming only exclusively from the front speaker, so it doesn't compete with the rhythm guitars. And then choirs and backing vocals and airy things like that live in the ceiling speakers. And then the backing vocals on Changeling, we have these demonic backing vocals done by my friend Alex, who's like doing all these pitched scream things. So it's like flow in front of you, and then Alex screaming at you from the sides when that happens. So that's just a really rough overview. And then the drums, they're kind of like spread across the room. So it's not like you're sitting exclusively in the drummer's seat, which I would have loved to try, but it wasn't technically possible with the material. So that's definitely like something to look into for next time.
I was actually hoping that you were going to say the demonic vocals came from the floor, like they were coming up from below you.
I think somebody would need to invent an even more immersive standard for that to happen. That would be fucking cool.
Yeah.
But then there's things moving also. Things can't just move left and right, but they can move across the room. So there's going to be like vocal delays that go like things like that.
Sick. So things are flying around the room. That's fucking wild, dude.
Wouldn't that be cool if like there was like a way they could, almost like how they release a movie, they like release an album and it's like you go to see it and you pay to go like in a theater, like a, you know, whatever, IMAX theater or whatever it is, you know, like, and like, it's like the whole album, but it's like music videos or whatever, but it's just the whole album all the way through. And you
Dude,
like
that's
listen
exactly
to
what I would love to do for Changeling if I had the budget. So the listening session next week is going to be in a very, very good Atmos studio because we are sponsored by Genelec, the speaker company from Finland. So that's awesome.
Cool.
But the higher you scale up in a big movie theater, obviously the more powerful it is. And the more the things, that's the funny thing about it that I realized, the more you spread it out over these different speakers, the more transparent it gets.
Yeah.
Right? But just to finish my little spoiler tour, so the drums are interesting in this case because you're not sitting completely in the kit, but it's kind of like a hyper real. And I mean the album doesn't have very natural drums anyway. It's very stylized. Also partly for that reason. So what it is, it's like the snare drum will be happening in front of you, but then every snare verb, every sustain of the snare will kind of move to the back, like, and then the toms will be like over there. They will have an angle that will start left a little bit up and then will finish to your right side. And so on the album, that's one of the things that I wrote for this album. I wrote a ton of like rolling tom grooves that go in stereo. They go from left to right.
I love that.
Atmos. Oh, hang on. I have a little candle burning here.
No worries.
Okay, it's fine. So in Atmos, then that goes kind of like above to like ear level and then around you, and then the cymbals they're kind of elevated, happening like above you. And it's been really difficult to find the sweet spot with all these new possibilities. Like, how much do you spread it out before it doesn't sound like a drum set anymore, before it sounds too artificial? Same with the guitar. So you have to do so much experimenting to see where you end up in the middle, where you get these really hyper real spatial things going on. But at the same time, you still make it sound like the source material. And I think that's why it took us so long to do the Atmos mix in the end. I mean, we worked on it on and off since December. So, you know, it's pretty long for a mix that probably nobody's going to hear, you know, but
I'm ready.
I'm thinking of the even bigger space that you could do it in, not even just IMAX, because I've experienced the Sphere in Vegas, and that's like you're surrounded by everything visually and auditorially, if that's even a word.
Yeah, and that's a space that definitely uses those kinds of technologies already.
How sick would it be to have just a sick Changeling visual thing that's happening the whole time while listening to the album?
That'd be super cool. Okay, I'm going to shut up about this topic now, but
so that's all you do.
No, it's fascinating stuff, dude.
Yeah.
It's totally fascinating. I could
totally
about
cool,
it.
dude. Yeah. So I know Anthony's he's got a bit more time. I know. So we just want to one thing I kind of the pre-pod, I was kind of asking you about Christian and stuff, and you guys are friends, and of course, you know, Christian, we're all homies. And so it's like, if you just want to talk about the project, how it came to be, you know, with Changeling and, you know.
Right. So I try not to make this another rant for 1 minute on end, but so Christian was part of the origin story of this album initially, because so Christian and I, we go back fucking quarter of a century now. We first got in touch online when we were both teenagers, like hanging out on message boards. And there was a point in time, early pandemic, where him and I, we were in a similar position, and we were similarly disgruntled, to put it like that, about a certain band which we had both contributed material for and that we couldn't use. That was being taken advantage of and taken away from us, and just not great things were happening. And we were both saying to each other, hey, why don't we do a duo project, the two of us in that style, building a band, playing that old material on bringing that back, and fighting those restrictions that we were facing together, and write new stuff together. We were both prolific writers. Let's just do it together, and let's see where it takes us. That was the initial idea. And then it turned out, that it wasn't so easy as we thought to bring our writing styles together, because Christian has his thing dialed in 100%. I have a very different, specific way of working, and I think we were both a little bit like taking it back, like, ugh, it's way more difficult than we thought. And then we had material. So I think he had like 3 songs that he had contributed, and I had maybe like 5 skeleton songs, not fully fleshed out yet. So we did have material, right? And then, as the story goes, he went on to rejoin Obscura. We all know that that was not going to be long-lived.
Sustain, yeah.
I'm gonna not say anything on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's how it happened, and he took those 3 songs with him, and I know at least 2 ended up on that forthcoming Obscura album that he then ended up writing. I don't think that's any secret anymore, that that's basically the album that he wrote. And there's songs on that album that were supposed to be on what then became Changeling. But the thing for me was that came out of that, I was pissed, and he knows that. I was really pissed, and fortunately we've been able to completely work through that, and now it's all good.
Yeah.
But I was pissed initially, and it took me a while to see the positive in it. But now I do, because I don't think without having him as a project partner, I would have had the self-confidence to just say, okay, I'm going to write technical death metal music again. Because the album that I had done with that band was so traumatic for me. No, it's not the origin of my PTSD diagnosis, but it's like,
Contributed.
let's say 40% of that diagnosis are in what happened with that, and what transpired.
Yeah.
And so it was really difficult for me to go back there. And so without Christian, I don't think I would have made that step. And then when he took his material, then I still had so many things left, enough things left so that I could really easily make the decision at some point to say, well, it would be a complete idiot move to not use this material. So let me just do it myself. And so I did. And then it became my next solo album. And then I asked Mike Heller, which I think Christian was actually the one suggesting him for our shared project.
Mm-hmm.
And then I asked him, hey, if Christian is doing other stuff now, do you still want to be a part of it? And he was. And then I asked Morian. He was my one and only choice for this, because I also didn't want to do another instrumental album. That much was clear to me. The material wasn't really for that. And then very long story short, over the course of a few years, then I built this album bit by bit to be my next solo album. And then only when I signed it to Season of Mist, Michael from Season of Mist, one of the first things he said to me was like, okay, I'm going to sign this no matter what, because I like it, and I think it's going to be really cool. But you really should consider doing this as a separate project with a different name, because you already have a band with this. Like the core band is on the entire album. It has a band sound, and from many different music biz angles, it just makes more sense. And I took him by his word on that, and here we are now with Changeling, the entity.
There you go.
I like it. I agree. I think it's cool.
Yeah, it is its own entity, dude. Yeah, like I said, dude, it's a great record. If you are looking for a nice blend and variety, but all well executed and, like Casey was saying, dynamically and songwriting wise, all that stuff, it's all one nice big package, dude. And I really appreciate that's because you go through these stages where all this metal comes at you and it all kind of is blurred, nothing really stands out to you. But then there's these, now in my older years, there is still like a handful of records each year that still are important, make themselves important to me, and I think this is one of them. This year, definitely, I think that 2025, the Changeling record, is going to open up for me even more. And by, after a fair amount of time with it, I think I'm going to be calling it definitely one of my favorites of this year, and one of my favorites in a long time too, dude. I mean, there's just so many elements of it, the dissonant black metal-esque aspects of it. There's some Opeth vibes in there too at times too, but there's there's plenty of unique layering and world music involved, that it's all its own thing. And Changeling is a perfect thing because it's like a morphing thing throughout the whole entire record.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a shape-shifting situation.
Did you guys catch on? Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, go ahead.
Did you guys pick up on the concept of the musical concept of why that is?
I didn't really pick up on too much of it, other than
so what is it?
Yeah, go for it.
No, by this point, I have to ask, because I didn't expect this to translate very differently between the physical product and the streaming product. And I've seen this in reviews where people have criticized also some aspects of it. And then later on, I was kind of taken aback by the criticism. And then later on, I was like, oh, well, actually, if they are streaming it, I don't think it's as obvious. So if to not be as cryptic, on the physical product, it's very clearly indicated that the album has 4 chapters. And these 4 chapters have very different personalities. Mm-hmm. And only the first chapter has these guest solos by 3 people. And these 3 people are involved with 3 different bands that I consider to be my biggest influences when it comes to death metal, which is Death, Cynic, and Morbid Angel. And so the whole first chapter is basically about paying tribute to the past of death metal. That's all. That's what it is. It's a little bit more complicated because I'm also patting myself on the back and I'm also tributing to my own past. So there's like clear reference to the Obscura album that I did and other things. But it's basically a giant love letter to death metal, classic death metal. And so the first proper song, Instant Results, has Jason, who played on Cynic's Focus. And then many people have said, like, I really like this album, but why the hell would he choose to end that song with a fade out? And I think if you don't know that it's Jason playing that outro solo, and you don't make that connection.
And how could I?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, that's exactly what it is. Like it had to end with a fade out because that's the most obvious way I can show people this is me, like building a little bit of a shrine for how awesome Cynic's Focus album is. Because how could I? But I think it's like 4 or 5 songs on that album ending with fade outs. So to me, that was also it's gotta have a fade out, right?
Dude, I love these types of Easter eggs. You got to leave some for me, but give us that was chapter 1. Now chapter 2 goes into what?
Yeah, so I mean, to make it very short, from chapter to chapter, we basically move from that past into the future.
Hmm.
That's basically the concept. That's why over the course of the album, the songs get longer, the song structures get more complicated, and the the elements that I'm working with, like the types of orchestration, the types of chords, the types of different musical elements and techniques, they also get more interesting and less. I don't want to say better because there's no such thing, but they get more intricate
Hmm.
over the course of the record, and that's why it just keeps building towards the end. Um, and yeah, so chapter 2 is basically saying, well, this is still death metal, and like the image I can give is like if this is a vinyl and you put the needle on chapter 2 anywhere, it's like within 10 seconds it's death metal.
Yeah.
But the type of material in that I'm working with is more intricate, more unique, and definitely less tried and true.
Hmm.
And then chapter 3 is Abdication, and chapter 4 is Anathema. The last two songs are chapters each. And then there's like a secondary concept where on each song of the album, on the first 9 songs, every song has a different kind of orchestration. And it doesn't repeat itself. Like these are happening only on that specific song. And then they all, in some little way, are brought back for the final song where the whole thing comes together.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of symphonic aspects that are very tasteful because like symphonic metal could get pretty cheesy in ways, but no, it's very tasteful in the symphonic aspects, and the the operatic vocals. Those are very tasteful as well. And I think that again, back to the world aspect, you took just enough of like the tabla section. I think there are tablas that are being played.
Definitely tablas happening, yeah.
Yeah, that was just enough, and added to it's like nothing seemed to be overdone. It was always like the perfect helping of this or that, and you're waiting. It's like an elegant meal, and you're waiting for the next course. It's like
awesome. I very like that analogy.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and you just want, and each in all of these delicious little small plates they come out, and then actually towards the end of the album, then the big meals happen, and it becomes a feast.
If you have the stomach for it, I guess. But that's also one of the things with the album. I think that's been kind of challenging to communicate, and I think has probably put some people off that it is long and it gets more dense and heavy towards the end. But that's why it also has 4 chapters, and why these chapters have little interludes and quiet sections to round them off, so that I hoped to communicate to people, hey, you are supposed to have a breathing space. You're not supposed to necessarily to do the whole thing in one sitting. It's fine. Like with a good meal, it's advisable that you have a little bit of a
palate
pause
cleanser
before the next course, right?
Yep.
So, but I guess that was not something that was in the cards, with streaming being the dominant form of enjoyment. So people are just being like, why is this so long?
Yeah, but I mean, there's definitely a bubble of people that are just like us, where we enjoy the whole experience as one thing.
That's
Like
super
I'm
cool.
sure Casey's been walking around his place with it just playing constantly as he's talking about it. I'm gonna be real, like Casey. He'll still always give props to all the bands, but you could tell when Casey like really likes something, because he starts to like, hey dude, this is really cool, you should listen to it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna be listening to it on the way home, dude. And I was so happy that I did.
Yeah.
That's
Our friend Josh, like if I send it to Josh, then that's something that.
Oh yeah.
Like, because he's our old friend that used to sell merch for us, and an old buddy. He worked at a record shop in Santa Cruz, and he's just always showing us albums. He showed me like a million bands that I'd still love to this day, and Theory and Practice, and Canvas Solaris, and all kinds.
For sure, man.
Yeah, dude. And so yeah, I was tooting your guys' horn a little bit over the last week or so or two.
Well, then shout out to Josh.
Yeah, shout out to Josh.
Dude.
Yeah,
Shout out. Josh is one of those guys from the old school that I always would love to have him on, and we could just talk. We just talk albums the whole time.
Yeah, he's a busy guy. But yeah, dude. But dude, yeah, this has just been so awesome, dude. We definitely should do like a part 2 episode, and like I would love to and talk more about the Dolby stuff. I'm gonna try it. I'm literally gonna go get some cable because I need longer cable to hook. I'm gonna work on it, dude, today. I'm like excited, and I can't wait to check that out. And I would love to just further that discussion. And yeah, man, super cool.
It's fascinating stuff, dude.
Chatting with you, yeah,
dudes. If you want to have me again for more rambling monologues, I'm always down for that.
Most definitely, dude. I mean, we definitely didn't go through. We didn't even get through your teenager 20s. We just started our ears with the Dolby stuff, and I could listen to that for a long time, dude. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
I keep saying the word fascinating, but it is. I'm just like.
I'm kind of
intrigued
for hijacking the conversation with the Dolby stuff.
No, that's totally fine, dude.
No, I just think it's so cool that it's not just like, oh, here's this technology, and then the albums are like, they work on it, and so like you guys put all that thought and work into making it like super like specific and ideal for that, and like that's just, I can't wait to hear it, and so fun to talk about that, and like just imagining like mixing in that way and thinking of certain instruments and sounds coming in different angles, and just
it makes you visualize. It makes me visualize and almost see the music if I think of myself in a room. And the way that you explained it, just I want to be in a space like that now. I got to find out a way that I can either build a space like that where I can have that experience, or go somewhere that I can sit and have a true, Atmos experience.
I would love that for you, because I think it's just an experience. Once you've had it, you can't unhave it. In the way that it really makes you aware of different possibilities for music, and how sometimes we've done a lot in music, we accomplished so many things, but there's still untapped potential. And then that was the moment when I got really excited, because listening to that for the first time, I really got to see potential, right? And I have to say that I've been really lucky in that way, that I had that twice in my life now, that I had this moment of seeing potential for something new. Like the first time was when I got the chance to, bring fretless guitar to metal. And that was also a moment where I was like, I don't care how much work this takes. The possibilities are so cool. And then, it's awesome, but it's also a little bit of a responsibility. But I guess you can see in how I'm talking about it that there's it's such a exciting thing that you
totally,
can't
dude,
contain yourself.
We all see metal as something that we want to contribute something to, whether it's just being a avid fan that goes to shows and supports the gigs and all that kind of stuff. But then there's the musicians that make albums to contribute to the thing as well. But then there's this upper level thing that you're talking about. Well, I'm not only gonna contribute music, but I'm also gonna push the whole thing further in a direction where it can be experienced differently. Or with the fretless thing, it can be played on different instruments than or modified versions of the instrument. I think that's totally cool, dude. You're making bigger splashes in the ocean of metal than I think I'm ever going to do, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we never got really into the PTSD thing so much. I also think for me, it's kind of like it's connected to my constant battle with self-worth, that I always had the feeling I need to one up myself constantly to be seen.
Hmm.
And so I think my entire career is just basically like a succession of events where I'm like, I'm gonna go bigger. I'm gonna do this. Nobody has done that before. Once I do that, they can't ignore me anymore, and then I feel ignored, and then things happen, and then the whole process starts again. So there's an element of that, but
Yeah,
then there's also the healthy element of just being really excited and feeling like a kid of the possibilities. So
totally, dude.
both works together in some way.
Yeah, I mean, there's other versions of people with PTSD that, there isn't anything positive that comes out of it, but you're using it as, a driving force to make sure that you are trying to be the best version of yourself in that moment.
Yeah, for sure. But I also want to say that I think that's a very, very broad diagnosis, and it's a very broad topic. And
Totally.
I think there's an insanely high number of people who would fall under the same conditions roughly and would never, just their path doesn't bring them to like having an actual doctor give them the diagnosis. Like I
Mhm.
was, if you had asked me even just 5 years ago if that was something that I would consider for myself, that would be associated with who I am, I would have laughed at you,
Right.
right? But then it happened, and once I really got to connect the dots, I was like, okay, yes, I see that now. And so I think a lot of people don't have that, and it's also debatable if that's positive for you, if because if it's impacting your self-worth negatively, maybe that's you don't even want that. But for me, it's been very positive in that I can own that part of myself more clearly now and work with it more. And
That's the best way to, I mean, I'm speaking from somebody who doesn't have any kind of PTSD from anything really, but I logically it just seems like once you if you have some traumatic thing that's from your past that's still, it affecting you in the present, and you are denying that even though it's a real thing, it's really just a underlining battle that you're having with yourself. But if you were to realize it, accept it, and actually take the steps to, live in the present with something like that, then, but everybody has different forms of PTSD, and some of the traumas that people have are something that you could never shake.
yeah.
It's
But I
all.
mean, how are you guys doing on time? Because I have a lot to say on that topic. We can talk about this if you want, but
I do want to talk about it, but I also I got some things I got with the family. We got sports coming up soon, and I really wish I could spend more time on the episode, but I gotta cut it pretty soon.
Yeah.
well, then how about this proposition? Like, if you guys want, we can at some point, if you have space for it, we could do a nice one. We could do an episode talking about musicians' mental health, because
Oh
that's
yeah, dude.
Most definitely. I think that if we
totally.
wanted to do a themed episode about this, I would be definitely into it, because I'm
Yeah.
sure that that is a very prevalent thing. And in our style of music, a lot of guys are trying to just be tough guys, and really not focusing on, life is life, and life can be fucking hard, and things can happen, and it's okay to, you know accept your feelings and all. Dude, I totally could do that type of episode, and I would love to do it. Let's say, within the next month, maybe we could do another one of these Saturdays again, and sports will probably be chilled out by then, and then I won't have to worry about it, and we can definitely have a long episode about that, because this is definitely something that I think that a lot of people should hear, you know?
Yeah. I mean, no pressure, but it just since it
No,
came up,
No, it's a great idea.
I'm putting out that right now, not only to hold myself accountable, but also just to show you that I actually really do want to have this part 2 and totally go into that. I mean, earlier in the episode, I think you could tell I was kind of trying to pick that out of you and see what was the specific reasons, but let's save that for that episode. And most definitely, dude, I think we should do that.
yeah. No, that's why I was asking about time, because we can go into that, but I think it might be more impactful for people if we really get it, give it the proper space, and maybe even have different voices on that.
Yeah.
Most
That's
definitely.
a great idea.
This is for me.
Cool.
I
Yeah,
think that's killer, dude.
we'll reach out and find a time that works in the next month or 2, and we'll figure that out, dude. That'd be great. No, we're super into it. I think our listeners are too. We got some people that are just chiming in. Like, that's, I think, way cool idea.
Yeah, dude. And shout out to your I guess he might be your publicist or something, Will. He's the guy I've been corresponding with this whole time. Super cool dude. He's been helping us with guests in the past too. He's always in touch, and yeah, shout out to Will.
Shout out to Will
helping us get this together.
Really, really good, helpful human being.
I called him today because I don't know if I said it on the stream, but I messed up and I went to the link for last week's episode. So I was just sitting in there by myself, and then it became 11 o'clock. And I remember that Will had said, "Hey, if you're having any issues, just call me." So I called him, and he was at like a street fair, and you could hear like carnival sounds in the background and shit. I'm like, "Hey, dude, I'm waiting for Tom. He's not popping on." And then after that, I found out I wasn't even in the right stream, guys. So it was all my fault.
He asked me via WhatsApp if everything was set up correctly. So,
Yeah.
Anthony, but I can assure you, Will has been through worse because he's been dealing with my bullshit for the past couple of weeks. So it's fine.
Yeah. Like I said, dude, my kids teach me how to use the devices sometimes. All right. Well, yeah, dude. Thanks again, Tom. Let's wrap it up. But we'll do some the plugs again real quick, the fast ones. Let me do the banners right here. BattleforgeCoffee.com. Go get your coffee there. GeneratorRehearsalStudios.com. Oceanside, California. Get your jam on there. Tom, changeling.bandcamp.com for all Changeling stuff.
Yeah. Changelingofficial.bandcamp.com. Sorry. And then you had tomfountainhead.de.
Yeah. I'm just clicking things now and getting lost here.
The Fountainhead.de.
There it is. Thefountainhead.de. And yeah. All right. Let's get going here, guys. But hey, super cool chat today, Tom. Thank you so much again. I said thank you 1,000 times, but truly thank you. Casey, thank you for hanging out with me, brother.
You're
Always
welcome.
a pleasure to have you here with me. And thank you to all you heads in the chat. Rock on for the rest of the weekend. Let me get this going over here. Oh, man, I'm lost now. All right. I think I got it. Okay. Cool, guys. Rock on. We'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Later.